Hello everybody, welcome to Game Escape. I wanted to try something different with my channel. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with this channel, what I want to give to the audience. I always wanted to create an environment where people can just chill out, relax, escape from the world for a little bit. And video games have always done that for me. I also want to create a channel with some value, a place where I can express, perhaps, some things that I enjoy. So, I thought about covering topics that some of these video games are about. In this case, blacksmithing. So we're gonna give this a shot. I hope that you can chill out, relax, get away from the world for a little bit, and I'm just gonna sit here and talk about blacksmithing. So the first topic we're gonna cover is the history of blacksmithing. I should say just primarily the blacksmith. We'll talk about the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and kind of wrap it up around the medieval 1800s area. But the argument I'm making, and at least what I'm seeing from my research, is that the blacksmith's necessity pretty much went unmatched in society for just a large swath of history. These guys really moved the bar forward each time, in each age, for each community that they served. It's pretty impressive. So let's start with the Stone Age, and I want you to think about, what did the Stone Age give those people? I mean, what did stone actually provide to the individuals that use it? You got limitations to stone or flint. I mean, you can chip off sharp pieces. You can use it as like a heavy object to work with. You can, chip it, carve it, or perhaps fasten it to bits of poles and sticks to make weapons or some type of tools. You can combine it with rope to make objects. I mean, it's apparent that tools enhances our ability to survive throughout history. Greater tools has always meant more efficiency with a greater capacity to complete tasks, honor gods, improve well-being, harvest food, and food's a big one, because the more capacity for food you have, the more ability you can sustain more people within a society. That's about what I want to cover for the Stone Age. I actually want to start getting into the Copper and into the Bronze Age. So a step forward seemed to occur, and you had a place called Anatolia, Turkey. It was around 5500 to 6500 BC when they found these artifacts, metal artifacts, copper artifacts that showed metallurgy. So you cannot, heat and cool a resource into a mold of your choosing with stone, but you can with these metals. And they found all kinds of stuff: mace heads, statues, tools, or just a variety of even household items that this society was using. So now you have something that lasts the test of time. I mean, so much so that modern day archaeologists were able to find these items. So the town in Anatolia, Turkey, they smelted copper from malachite. Now here's the cool thing about this, the interesting thing about this, is they would need two things: So they need an energy source capable of sustaining a temperature of 1,000 Celsius, which is about 1,832 Fahrenheit for my quick Google conversion rate. But that's a pretty high temperature. So they need a furnace because you gotta have the Celsius, the high temp, and you have to have an oxygen deprived environment. So they need a furnace to separate the metal from the malachite. The catch is that you're developing a new technology. So you're experimenting with known devices to try to bring about something new. The going theory right now, from what I've heard, says that the development of smelting came from accident. So around the Neolithic period, they developed kilns, a furnace that's capable of 700 Celsius, and it makes pots. It turns clay, it hardens clay into a waterproof device that they can carry water in or do other things with. So that was a technology available to them, but it's only 700 Celsius, so it's not close to what they need. But then later on they found kilns that can sustain around 1,000 Celsius, and those were these closed pottery kilns. So we know this info, but if you think about it, I mean, one of the earliest thermometers wasn't invented until 1539. So I'm sure these people aren't standing around and going, well, we gotta get the furnace to 1,000. So my layman's brain thinks that they saw some type of reaction to continuing an activity. So just by sheer fact of trying to improve the modern kiln, they unwittingly developed new kilns. They might have thrown some type of metal in there that they found, or they might have been using it with something else and noticed that these things separate and it can be useful. So it just puzzles my brain a little bit on how they might come about that. But later on we would find in history, or find back in areas of Israel, the Timma Valley, which we'll get into in a second. They found pottery crucibles and then eventually better furnaces for smelting copper. Alright, so at this point we have a group of people who don't even have thermometers, who have these kilns that are used for pottery, and they unwillingly or willingly or something found out a way that if you put malachite into a furnace, you get this liquid copper, this metal that you can cast things into. So more evidence of this was found in the Timma Valley, southern Israel, and they found this a vast mining operation that went underway, gathering malachite and using it in ground crucibles covered with local clay to extract the copper. So if you remember one of the statements about stone, before the pharaohs of Egypt colonized Palestine, they found all these stone tools that were really deficient. They were too big, they were clumsy, they just didn't work well. But the pharaohs brought with them metal tools to get the job done. And The proceeds were clear, with elaborate statues, tools, weapons, armor, cookware, silverware, plates, and bowls. I mean, the pharaohs really did open up shop and mass produce copper, at least, you know, mass produce in a way that was capable back then. Something else that the pharaohs did in their days of conquest was trade routes. They opened trade routes with different cities, and one of the cities was the city of Cyprus. And Cyprus had a readily available amount of tin. So if you add tin to copper, it hardens it. My understanding is it hardens it and it turns it into bronze. So it's a metal stronger than copper that doesn't even rust. And sooner after, like the 2000 BC time period, the world entered the Bronze Age because the Egyptians, through trade and their trade routes, spread bronze all over the place. Alright, so let's enter the Sea People, and that's what I'm hearing they're called. The Egyptians documented being attacked by the Sea People, were seafarers, and they attacked Cyprus, Anatolia, and others. And that's about all my understanding of them is they just called them the Sea People. So they destroyed Cyprus. So now you have the tin supplier of many people, you know, many cities, and that's gone. And with no tin means no bronze. So you can still have copper, but you lose the advantages bronze brought to the world. Those tools and those items. So something with copper and tin and making bronze is that these metals were rare to begin with. Now iron, on the other hand, was more accessible. And things changed around 1900 BC when the Hittites came to power in Anatolia, Turkey. So the Hittites started messing around with iron. And there's documentation because the Hittites kept like meticulous business records on trade records and stuff on clay tablets. And they document their sales in the regions. So what archaeologists got from these tablets and the sales is that the Hittites basically received 5-star ratings for their metallurgical prowess. They apparently made impressive iron goods for sale, and around 1400 BC, the Hittites were making iron artifacts and supplying Assyria and parts of the Egyptian Empire with iron supplies. I mean, let's go back to the temperature discussion just for a second. So copper is 1000 Celsius, but iron needs 1500 Celsius, so about 2732 Fahrenheit. Often the production of iron including making a bloom, which is basically a big ball of like iron mixed with slag from the furnace. It's just this kind of nasty mixture. The reason for this is because their furnaces weren't burning hot enough. So Blacksmith had to heat up the bloom, pound out the slag with a hammer, and then keep repeating that. And then eventually, smiths were left with a bar of what's called wrought iron. I'm gleaning from the research I did is that the Hittites possibly combined charcoal with their furnaces to keep the iron hot to help with this process, and they would have had to develop better furnaces, over time. So it's believed around 1200 BC, at the same time that the Hittites actually fell with their wars against Egypt, because they would fight against the pharaohs, and it sounds like the sea people were also involved that led to their downfall. Smiths learned how to steal iron. So what this means is that the carbon from the charcoal with a combination of quenching and heating took away some of the brittleness and created like a coating over the wrought iron, called steeling. So stealing the iron. This made such amazing advancements for society. So, iron has less rarity than other metals. It's sturdy, accessible, hasn't improved or created, help improve or create modern tools for convenience. So let's just look at agriculture. So they replaced the wooden plow with the iron plow. Axes took on a new form and became this common tool for clearing wooded areas to till fields, keep warm. I mean, being able to chop down wood and bring it into your home for warmth and cooking and other things. But it allowed them to clear forest areas more. It made them more efficient at clearing areas for agriculture. You had the iron sickle, which wheat was really eventually became popular. So wheat was grown quite a bit in the day. And then you had it's called the iron culture, which broke up the ground for farmers. The hard ground to be able to plant. You had the rotary quern, I think I'm saying that right, that crushed grain for food. You had the iron rotor they used in ships to steer. Chairs were being outfitted with iron, which made them more sturdier. You had superior armor and swords to help them win wars. A mixture of bronze and iron made elaborate work to honor gods and decorate armor. The chisel, wedge, and hammer were better for wood and stonework. Meanwhile, Europe used wrought iron, but actually China learned how to cast iron, melt it down, and be able to pour it in and make their tools that way. So iron spread throughout the world through the trade routes in Austria. Alright, so I'm jumping ahead, but I wanted to at least get through. We're at the iron stage. We're actually at the stage where they're stealing iron. They're making steel. And that's already given everybody an advancement. But where I think this leads up to is when Rome falls and we're in the Middle Ages. So Rome did a lot. I mean, they used slaves to mine a lot of materials. They had them like smelting silver, making currency, and doing all kinds of stuff. But with Rome gone, feudalism rose. With the Catholic Church really growing in power. So basically, this was a time where kings gave land to bishops and high-ranking members, and the peasants worked on any given, lot of land, and they gave most of what they made to the landowners. I bring that up for this, that these lands, these bishops, these towns, whatever you want to call it, a blacksmith usually worked for the church or a landowner, and they were extremely important. So every town had a blacksmith in the Middle Ages. And without this worker of metal, this commander over the forge, if you will, nobody could do their job. The work became so mysterious. This is an interesting side note. The work of a blacksmith became so mysterious that blacksmiths were accused in some cases of dealing in black magic. I mean, there's stories that go that some smiths were put to death by burning for their skill or ability because people didn't understand it. So let's look at some of the material that these guys were creating, or what they were creating. So specialty smiths created locks, silverware, nails, chains, horseshoes. They even made belt buckles. They of course made chainmail armor, which was extremely important in wartime. Even during, I mean, if you think of this time period, there was the Crusades. There was other fights with other landowners. So smiths were vitally important for war. They made trade goods and held economic importance for that reason. So they actually created, objects that could be traded with other places for a monetary, economic value. And technology just improved as these guys worked. I mean, let's take the invention of the heavy plow. Okay, so you have the ability to clear so much more land and make more crops, and you can do it with less people. So the greater food supplies means greater numbers of people that are drawn to town, looking for work, looking for food. And why the trade routes expanded and port cities thrived because of this. Very similar to the Middle Ages, the 1800s had plenty of use for blacksmiths. Nobody could do their job without the services provided by blacksmiths. All need the work of a skilled craftsman with the ability to work magic with metal. This continued until basically the Industrial Revolution, when mass production removed individual forces and brought about factories. At that time, many of the craftsmen had to shut down their shops, turn into being mechanics and factory workers. So that's the abbreviated story of the blacksmith. So I'm no historian, so please take this with a grain of salt. I didn't include every little detail that I could, but I'll list my resources below so you can look at them, check them out, watch the videos if you want, read about the material more. In my next video, I will be discussing the day in the life of a blacksmith. That came up quite frequently while I was looking at stuff. But most of all, I hope that this gave you a break from the world for a while, and until next time.